Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is your host, Ashley from Ashley Taylor Wellness. On this podcast, we talk about all things beauty, health, wellness, and optimization. Being a high maintenance hippie represents not being boxed in, as I strongly believe that one size does not fit all. I'm a nurse turned coach, and I have learned so much about both conventional and alternative options, and I want to help you expand your options. I'm here to inspire you to learn new ways to improve your quality of life and to take your power back. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. Today I have Danielle Paige with me. I'm so excited to have you on, so thank you for being here, Danielle.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you about everything.
Yes. So Danielle is a consciousness guide and astrologer and someone who I would consider to be a friend of mine. She has been so amazing. And we got to meet for the first time, I believe in 2021. You came through Phoenix. Is that how we met?
Yes.
For the first time?
Yep.
Yeah. So Instagram, all the craziness, it definitely has had a lot of ups and downs, but I've met so many amazing people. And that's one of the biggest blessings from the last 2 years. And you're one of them. So.
Oh, thank you. You too. It's been an honor to get to know you and connect and watch you rise like the phoenix.
Yes. And you're a big part of that. And I'll tell you, because I came to Florida for a speaking event last February, and I saw your beautiful home, and I mentioned that I had a lot of fears about starting over for my nursing career. And you really gave me some insight that helped me. And you showed me an old W-2 or something. And you're like, this is where I was and this is where I am today. And I'm like, wow, we really only see someone's finished product and we don't realize how much work it takes to get there. So what has that been like for you, creating this a beautiful, abundant life for yourself? What was it like to get there?
Oh my God, it's been such a journey. And I love that I showed you that, because this is proof of like, this is what I was making. This is now, like, don't worry, your current state is not your end result. I always say that to people, unless we want it to be, right? Unless there's something comfortable in the discomfort with that, which we have to look into. So it's been a journey. I started my business completely on my own because I had an awakening. I knew this was my path. I knew this was my purpose. But just because we take the step doesn't always mean like, oh, that just means, okay, I'm going to make 6 figures here, 7 figures there, right? That was not at all my journey. I was in my 30s. So I had my awakening at 30, was doing interior architecture before. This completely changed everything, that's a whole my story is very long, episode 1 and 2 of Cosmic Body Podcast. Yes. I go into it. And, my 30s, early 30s were really about clearing, healing, releasing the old limited beliefs. Basically, the old Danielle was dying and the new one had to come in. So pretty much what the world is going through, starting from 2020, the collective ego death, I like to call it, and this awakening, I went through that 14 years prior. And it's been this journey to integrate the true parts of myself, to move through shadow parts, which we all have, right? But to see when the shadow is actually getting in the way, and I call it like driving the train with the shadow, right? Instead of our true self. So my 30s were not easy. And while I was doing all that and my gifts were opening up and I was learning even what that means to connect to spirit and so on and so forth, I was building a business, and I was also teaching myself astrology. So I learned astrology, I taught myself, and then I ended up taking teachers later on. But this is something my soul has done. So it's very easy for people to come on and criticize. And I definitely share the beauty of life now. It's not at all sharing, this is purse or this, these material objects, which mean nothing. What I'm sharing is the beautiful abundance and the beauty of life. Because for me and my journey and my path, for me to do the best work in the world, I need to have, a beautiful space. I need to have peace and calm in my nervous system, because I didn't have that. I was in survival for so many years, right? I know what it's like to be broke. I know what it's like to be like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my actual electricity bill, right? And be keeping up at night and having no man, no parents, nobody to help, right? It was just, this is my path I did on my own. That was what my soul wanted. So now I get to show people, it's not that you need to have my life. You need to have the life that you want, but it can be filled with joy. It can be filled with beauty, and it can be filled with abundance, because we don't have to be here in survival. But at the same time, let's not ignore and pretend like we didn't go through anything and we're still not going through things at times. I'm very honest with my audience, but it's also, like I was saying, it's very easy for someone to come on and just criticize and say, oh, you have this or you have that, or whatever they want to, but not understand the struggle of what it took to get here. And I mean, get here, what does that even mean, right? But just the journey from what people think, you know?
Yeah. A big thing that you just mentioned is the letting go. And that's something that we don't think about. We think about, I want to create a new life. I want to have a new job. I want to have this, whatever new thing. Yeah. But in order to get that, we have to let go of something. And that's really hard. I have gone through that in relationships, in career. And it's so easy to stay in our comfort zone because it's comfortable, even if it starts to become uncomfortable. So what did that shedding and letting go look like for you in your 30s?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to sugarcoat. When I say it was horrific, it was horrific, like absolutely horrific. And so sometimes if people haven't gone through an awakening or they don't know, you know, everything on the outside, let's just say for some people, it can look fine, right? There's, you know, you have a partner, let's say, that you love, you have a job that you love, but sometimes the soul is ready. And when the soul is ready, you can have all the stuff in the material world, but your soul is ready to expand its consciousness. And so what happens is you get ripped open from the inside out. And I always say it's like, you know, imagine your wound, or imagine your pain point, right? We all have a wound or a pain point or something that we're just really scared of. Imagine the universe touching and poking and poking and poking and poking and poking so that you feel it, you breathe it, you release it, you realize the story with it, right? And you have to process that. So when I say I went through a boot camp with spirit, I'm not even playing. Like, it was so intense. I would say I went through deep, deep, deep clearing for about 6 years straight. And you have to understand, right now we're in a beautiful time where you're going through awakening, or I'm going through awakening, or somebody is. There are coaches, there are people, there are healers online. And of course, with every profession, you have a lot of the BS people, then you have a lot of the, you know, the true people. But that's just with everything, okay? But at least you have access to this. When I was going through this, I don't even know, I mean, maybe Instagram was up. I mean, I definitely was on Instagram. And Facebook, I mean, it was like, there was like no groups for this, you know, so I didn't know anything. So when my first teacher was Spirit. Everyone's like, who taught you? Who did this? I just sat down and Spirit was guiding me and would tell me to meditate, would tell me to do these things. And then I did find a teacher to help me through this journey, but it was absolutely horrific. So when I say I'm living my most joyous, abundant life right now, it's 100% true. And I'm still human and still going through stuff. But I know how to move through it a lot more. Like right now, I'm actually going through one of the hardest astrological transits you can have. Pluto is opposing my moon. It's exact at 29 degrees Capricorn and Cancer right now. This is literally the hardest transit you can have. It rips you open, and I've been feeling it. But what I'm doing is I'm feeling it. Not my first rodeo, been here. So I'm asking, what is it teaching me? I see the theme this time around that it's coming up because it happened last year as well. Passes over a couple times before it leaves. And I am saying, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, that hurts. And yeah, that I feel that. And I'm letting myself be in there. And what's happening, I'm watching this story that's been with me for 44 years, almost 45 years, this underlying trauma, this underlying density that's been there my whole life. It's always been a pulse. And I'm feeling and observing and watching it literally one by one, step by step, move away because it's not the truth of who I am. So I am sitting with it, and I'm so happy that I've been able to go through what I went through so that I can sit through the hardest transit and still be here to talk about it.
Yeah.
Tangent, but there were so many things I wanted to say.
Yeah, I love it. And you also mentioned how important it is to you to have a beautiful space and what that does for your energy. And I am in a period of time where I'm considering where I'm going to be living. So there's one part of me that thinks I need to save as much money and I might end up somewhere dark and dingy, but I'm saving money. Or then another piece of me, it's like, how do I create the life that I want for myself? How do I make this happen? Not is this possible for me, but how do I make that happen?
Yeah.
And it's a totally different way of looking at it. So in the space that you have now, how does that make you feel? And for anyone who doesn't know, just, I guess, describe what the space is like.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think just real quickly to go back to what you said is, can you be your best self in a dark and dingy place, right? How is that going to serve you? So my place right now, I lived in LA before I moved to Miami, where I'm now. And I started my business and had no money in this small rent-controlled apartment. And it was cute. It was a little cottage. It was tiny, tiny, tiny. And I lived there. And so as my business grew and I grew, I started to get more money, and I was so happy about that. But I still stayed there, and it served what it needed to do. And then I started to get money, and I used to travel the world right before 2020. Now I'm going back at that.
Yeah.
And then I realized around 2020 that I was outgrowing the space. So I moved to Miami, long story with all that, but I moved to Miami, and I'm now in a beautiful oceanfront condo, literally on the ocean. I just walked downstairs and I'm on the ocean. It's gorgeous in this space, and it's very quiet. It's very peaceful. I feel like I'm in Atlantis. So it allows me to even be a more clear channel. And for people that don't know, my background's in interior design and architecture. So that's what I used to do before I had my awakening and got into this line of work. And it was really important for me I got very direct information from spirit on many levels. So I sold all my furniture when I was in LA because it was just old. I've had it, and it was a small space, and I just wanted to start over. So I came here and I had nothing. So I had to buy all new furniture. It's, basically 2 bedrooms, an office, and a foyer, and a patio, right? So I had nothing. So that's a big space. And so spirit was very clear, because I did have some moments where I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to not be cheap, right? This is not going to be $5,000 for this whole space. And for what I wanted, because I am an interior designer, that's my background, I know what I like. And this was important for me to create the space. So they made it very clear that this space was for me to grow in. This space was for me to then bring my partner into. It was also important for me on my journey to show my family and my lineage, my ancestry, that I can have it all. That I don't just have to sacrifice in one place, that I can show up, I can do the work, I deserve this, that we all deserve this. And my nervous system needs a space so that I can be the best that I can be in the world, so that I can help other people. Because if I am in a situation, and listen, we all go through it, but these temporary moments are temporary moments. They're not our life story again, unless we believe it's our life story, right? So do I serve anyone when I am in a loud place with screaming people, uncomfortable? And I get it. Again, I will say sometimes the situation is that's the way it is for the time being, right? And you do the best you can. But for where I'm at and for the work I'm doing in the world, it needed to be pristine, clear. The energy in here is so beautiful. Everyone noticed when they walk in, I have it gridded, I have crystals, I have quantum machines everywhere. It's on the ocean. It's literally Atlantis. It's me and the dolphins all the time. And that's the space that I created to, again, be the best that I can in the world. Because if I don't take care of myself and my nervous system, again, I am of no service to the world. And, I went through a 5-year health journey. Very, very debilitating. Very sick with Lyme and everything that comes along, all the co-infections with it. And so it was very important for me, especially in Florida, that I find a place that doesn't have mold. And of course, you can't always stop it, but this is new. No one's lived here before. So the windows weren't just open for years, right? And so that was very important to me.
Yeah. And in the type of work that you do, and even the type of work that I do, it's different than a 9-to-5 where you show up and you spend your time. It doesn't really matter what your energetic state is like. As a nurse, it doesn't matter if I take care of myself. It just matters if I get the juice and tell other people to get the juice and give the meds and all of that. It makes no difference. But there's no way that I'm going to thrive in my coaching career if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not taking care of my energy. So a lot of people are in a different world, a different paradigm where it's time equals money, but that's not true for either of us at this point. It's more so when we invest in ourselves, take care of ourselves, and really maximize our energy, that's how we become more financially abundant. And it's not time for money, it's energy.
Yeah, and this is my office. This is where I'm at all day long. So again, how does that affect everything, And again, the more money I make, I just actually left my parents' house, and I might be buying a condo for our family friend that's like family, and to help support her, and she pays me rent. And so that is possible because I do, create this environment and do this work in the world, right? So the more money we make, the more we can help the world, the more we can help people. Again, we have it backwards where, and we talked about this a lot. Oh, you're spiritual, you shouldn't have anything. Okay, so I'm spiritual, so that means I can't have a Prada purse ever? Okay, why? Who said? And where in the bylaws of the universe, right? That where the laws does it say this? And one, it's important to understand that in no way does a purse or shoes make me. You can take everything away and I'm still the same person because I didn't have any of that before. But we also get to enjoy life. We also get to adorn ourselves. There's something very beautiful and abundant and juicy about living in the place where, oh, I would like to have that. I can have that, right? That doesn't mean go out and buy every single thing. That means adorn yourself like the goddess, like the queen that you are, right? And when I say that, I don't mean like, like in the spiritual community, like everyone's a queen and goddess, but do you embody that? And that doesn't mean buying something. That means how much do you love yourself that you're going to allow yourself to receive? Yes. And it's all connected, the whole journey.
Yes. And so money, that is a topic that is kind of taboo in the spiritual community or just in general. A lot of people like myself grew up hearing things, money doesn't grow on trees, money is for greedy rich assholes. So you certainly want to put yourself in that category. So a lot of people have this internal conflict with money. We want it, but we believe it's bad or wrong. Did you ever have that belief back in the day?
So I've never had a belief that money makes you wrong or bad. I definitely had my own beliefs about money. My parents, they grew up very poor, and so they worked all the time, and that was their way of showing love. I didn't grow up in a rich household. We were just, very middle class. But that's also, I understand that might be higher than a lot of people as well. But it was always okay. But there was always this belief, because of my mom's programming, of that we would be on the street in a moment, which was never the case, right? So I had to clear a lot of that. And I had to set boundaries with my family. And that's what I was doing in my 30s. That's what, but I never, once I started clearing and doing the work and healing my shadows and trauma, I never did have the belief, because to me, it just doesn't even make sense, because I'm not really attached to that of like, oh, if you have money, this means you're greedy. Because if you also don't have money, then you're struggling and you're up at night crying, right? And how is that? It's funny. I said to my dad recently, we were talking, and just as I've made more money over the years and hired a financial consultant, someone to help me with all this, I said to him at one point, it's hard. And I said, it's actually overwhelming. And he was like, why? I'm like, well, because now that you have money, like money has to work for you. And there's all these things I had to learn. And he was like, I'm actually going to correct you. He said, what's hard is when you don't have money, because then you can't do the things, right? You can't get the food. You can't go to the doctor. Whatever it is you need to do. But I had this belief, right? So that when I'm sharing this is these beliefs come out of nowhere, right? They come and we have to continually share. But all of a sudden I had all this money. Then I had to believe that it was hard, because now I didn't know what to do with all this money, right? So beliefs come and go throughout our life. We're never just like, oh, we cleared it and we're good for the rest of our life. I'm going to hit another level where there's a baseline, and that's going to be a new level where that feels hard to me, but that would never even been possible in the past. So we have to constantly continue clearing, and that's why I'm sharing that.
Yes, definitely. And I talked to someone else about fear, and I don't know if you had any fear about starting your business or starting your podcast. I definitely did. And what I've learned is that a lot of people say that the fear doesn't go away. We just get stronger. We just realize here's another challenge. Here's another opportunity for growth, if you want to see it that way. And we rise to it instead of staying in our comfort zone. Would you agree with that, or do you see it differently?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have to grow, and when sometimes we might not be ready for something, and then there's a timing factor. But we can call it timing, or what we can call it is a shift in consciousness that happens, and more belief in ourselves, which sometimes take time. Like, time is not real, but we are here on Earth in a 3D body. So, we're ascending to our body, which is a whole other story, but we are here in the 3D. And so does it take time, or is it a shift in consciousness and love for self and courage and belief in knowing that we can? So, it's all connected. When I first had my awakening, I was never have my awakening and then I'm going to start a business. That's never was. It was having my awakening and then understanding that, wow, there's something here. And this feels so good to me in a way that nothing else has felt good. And then I had this epiphany one day. I remember going to the library, the metaphysical section, which was like tiny, 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 small. And there was like 3 books, right? And so I remember reading this book. It was like Sylvia Browne, the psychic, okay? And I remember reading through, and then I got this like huge download that came through, and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. And at that point I was like, wait, what? And I dropped the book, and I like out loud, I'm like, wait, what? I want to be a psychic? And I'm like, what? Like I couldn't even fathom what I said. But what it was my soul was speaking to me. So it's not about a psychic like predicting your future, but it's connecting to other realms that we don't see, right? So going back to this, I didn't have fear because I didn't know I was going to start it. And then when I started learning astrology and seeing how much it changed my life, it just became so fun. And then it became this thing, this natural next progression, and spirit was guiding me. So then it just became my truth. But I will say, when I first, someone told me, oh, you're going to have your own podcast. And that was years ago. And I was like, oh, no. Like I can't have my own, right? Because I was scared. And then also when I do my moon circles now, which we could talk about later, but that came through as a channel years ago. I've been doing them for probably 8, 9 years, but like 10 years ago it came through. And I remember writing everything down on the list, but I was too scared to do it. And I put on a piece of paper and put it in my folder that was on my desk. And probably like a year later, I came back and I got it and I did it. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. So yes, we might not always be ready and we have fear, but it's really the small steps every day that help shift our vibration and shift our consciousness into awareness. Then it becomes just this knowing, like it is just a knowing that I'm here to make money. It's a knowing that you are here to make money. It's a knowing that everyone listening here is here to make money. It is not a knowing that they have to be in lack, even if that's a temporary situation to learn a lesson. You know, unless we were on the street, and granted, there are some contracts that are like that, and then my heart goes out to that, but that could have been me last time, that could have been you last time, right? So we have to have compassion and, help everyone. But if you're listening to this right now, that's not your contract, okay? I'm just going to tell you straight out. But there's a belief, there's a knowing that I deserve this, that you deserve this, that to me, this is my truth. It's an unwavering truth. I don't believe I need to struggle. I don't believe I'm unworthy of this. I did years ago, most likely. I probably didn't even think that I even had that belief. But that's the work. And I continue to do the work. And I'm definitely not saying I'm enlightened and I'm perfect. I mean, God knows. So I like to say that because people like to put those things in. They like to project their stuff. And nowhere have I ever said that. Nowhere have you said this, right? We're human, right? But I'm in alignment with my soul and my soul guides me. So if I get off track, then I'm going to learn and then we're going to get back on.
Yes. And coming back to that, knowing ourselves, staying true to ourselves, what are our values? And we're really not responsible for a story that someone else creates. And I know on social media, I get all sorts of things from people.
Yep.
And that's also been an opportunity for growth. I used to care a lot about what people think. And now because of social media, I'm like, well, here's another one that
I know. I have to say you are amazing because you do get a lot of stuff. I get a lot of stuff too. But I can see from the outside, you are someone that is very open. Your heart is opening so much more every day. You're curious. You want to help. You're just showing up as your authentic self. And that triggers people. And there is a wisdom in you and an innocence as well. And people, I believe I can see, people will try to knock that down because of their own stuff. And that is a beautiful thing that you have. You have the wisdom and you have this innocence and curiosity to you, and that you're just showing up as yourself. And people don't understand that because most people don't show up as themselves. Yes. And you're saying, here I am and all my stuff. And that's beautiful.
There was someone a few years ago, Amanda Francis. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah.
I saw a live that she did and I was judging her so much because I'm like, well, who is she? She makes all this money. What does she do? And I found myself being very critical, very judgmental. I'll be honest about that. And then a light bulb went off and I'm like, well, why can't I do that? Why can't I figure out a way to do that?
Exactly.
So that was my own scarcity mindset showing up, being jealous or trying to speak poorly about someone in my head to make myself feel better instead of seeing, hey, there's an opportunity for you to do the same. And I think a lot of people, if they don't believe it's possible, they're going to try to bring other people down instead of seeing, what if I could bring myself up? And that's been a huge shift.
Yeah. So. And, you know, she's a beautiful example, and so many others are also beautiful examples of not caring what other people think. And here's the thing. If you are doing something big, if you are doing something that is changing the world, and if you are doing something that is ruffling feathers, you are absolutely going to get any kind of slack, right, from anyone. So it just comes with the territory. And once I understand that, it is. You know, listen, there are people, videos making fun of me. There's like, you know, people have written reviews, and none of that stuff matters, because I know that no person that is aligned with their heart would take the time and do that. That is someone that is struggling, that is suffering. And also, we have a tendency to grasp onto the one or two negative things. And what about, in all the years, I can definitely say the amount of testimonials I have and the amount of people's lives that I've helped change, and their lives are completely different, and pages and pages and pages and pages of testimonials, right? We look at the negative always. It's human nature, right? So it's like there's always going to be that. You're not here to impress everyone. I know you always say that. There's no way you're going to. And also, we're all on different levels of our journey. People that are yelling and screaming and projecting, they're in lower states of consciousness. Now, me saying that doesn't mean I'm here and they're there. No, again, that's projection that people are going to say. That saying that I can have jealousy to someone, or I can have feelings for someone, but I also have enough self-regulation and awareness to know that I'm not going to project it onto them, and that's something that I need to work through. Yes. Right? So people that are doing that, I actually feel for them, because they are struggling. They are not successful. They are not abundant. They are not in love, and they are not living the life of their dreams. There is zero chance that is happening.
That is true. That was true for me. When I was having those thoughts about her, that's when I was in a low place. I was miserable in my job. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And
and it's
created
easy.
A story.
Yes, and it's easy because that is someone that has, whether it's me, whether it's her, whether it's you, we have someone that has the balls, I'll just say, to stand up there, be ourselves, share our light with the world. And when you stand on stage, per se, it is so easy for people to criticize, but it's easy for them to get on stage and do what we're doing, right? Yes. So exactly, right? And so you have to have compassion for that, because thank you, I'm sorry, sending you love, but I'm going to keep going because I don't have time for this.
Yes.
I don't have time for this at all.
And anybody listening who is on social media, whether you're a formal content creator or it's just you sharing your life, it's not going to be for everybody. And that's okay. And as long as you're not telling other people how they must live, then that's all good. You know, I do what's right for me, what's right for you. And I think I don't get a lot of, well, maybe I do have some people that aren't a fan, but that's okay. They think the things that I do are weird, but it doesn't trigger me because I'm like, they are weird, but that's okay. I'm going to do it. No one's mandating that you put anything up your butt. It's okay. You don't have to do any of that. And here's another thing. When we need people to do it our way, that's attachment. And even as a coach, I've had to check myself and realize people are on their own timeline. It's not for me to decide when someone's ready for something. And I might want to shake them and be like, why can't you see this? But that's not for me to do. I'm robbing them of the opportunity to figure it out for themselves. And it's hard for a lot of us to watch people suffer because we want to make everything better, but that is where the growth comes. So in my own coaching practice, I've had to just sit with people in the messy moments, but we don't like that. We want everything to be sunshine and roses all the time.
Oh, I definitely don't. Not after I've been slammed by the universe, picked up and slammed 10 times and ran over. So, but yes, I think society as a whole definitely wants that for sure.
So for the High Maintenance Hippie podcast, it's really about high maintenance hippie to me is not boxing yourself in. You're allowed to be spiritual. You're allowed to be a good person. You're allowed to make money. You're allowed to be a good person on the inside, and you're allowed to decorate your shell. You're allowed to do these things. And there's a lot of linear thinking, all or nothing. You're in this camp or that camp. It's division. It's taking the bait, in my opinion. So I do believe in, I want to age as gracefully as possible. I want to look as good as I can. But at the same time, if you decorate your outsides, that's not really going to make you beautiful. It comes from within. And one of the things that you've shared is your Explant story. So I would love it if you would share about that, and just who were you when you decided to get the boobs? How did it make you feel? When did you decide to let go of them? And how was that process? Because I believe it was a lot more of a physical process for you. A lot more than just a physical process for you.
Oh, yes. Okay,
Yes.
so I got breast implants when I was 23.
Okay.
So at that point, I was completely unconscious in the system, just like almost everyone else, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted them. I was very small chested. I had a very large butt, which at the time was like everyone made fun. Now I'm like, thank you, God. And, I just, at the time, I definitely was comparing myself to other people. Thank God we didn't have Instagram, but we had the magazines. I grew up in the era of Cindy Crawford, and I definitely was never going to look like Cindy Crawford, being 5'1" on a good day, petite, right? But, I was like, wow, so it definitely was a lot of comparison and low self-worth. Now, that being said, I have to say this. I didn't get them thinking like, oh, my life was just going to be completely fine. No. I mean, maybe some people do, but I'm going to tell you exactly what about me. I didn't get them thinking, but did I get them because I had doubts about my body? Absolutely, right? But I didn't think it was going to change my life. So I got them and all was good. I even asked my doctor at the time, I'm like, oh, are these dangerous? Again, this is I think this was like in 2000. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this was like forever ago. So I even asked my doctor, and he's like, no, they're fine. The only thing is you might lose sensation in your nipple, or you might not be able to breastfeed. So at 23 or whatever it was, I said, I can't remember anymore. It's like, this was such a long time ago, 23, I think, yeah. I'm years old. I was like, I don't care about breastfeeding. I mean, I'm just telling you straight out. Like now, I would love to be a mother and I can't wait to breastfeed, but I'm sorry, at 23, I didn't give a shit. I just want to go to Vegas, like I didn't care. I like really was like, great. And so I won't breastfeed. Like there's bottles for that. Right. So, and then I was like, well, that sucks to lose sensation in your nipple, but okay, I'm in. So I did that. That's all there was. That's the consciousness. Right. And I was actually, I don't want to say okay, because what it's happening is, and obviously you talk about this with the work you do, is we have everyone has a different toxic load and everyone has a different constitution. And, I have the MTHFR mutation. So it's hard for me to, detox. I don't produce, with the folate. And so I'm just, things are stuck. My lifts are always slow. So I'm predispositioned to certain things where it's not the end of the world, but I am predispositioned. I grew up on sugar. I grew up on processed food. My gut was a mess, antibiotics all the time, vaccines all the time when I was younger. I mean, this was just a ticking time bomb. So I get these boobs, and then, so I look back and I'm always in and out of like doctors. I was in Western med, the system all the time, stomach issues, gut, everything is connected. At the time I had no idea. And then I get Lyme in 2017, super sick. And, at that point, my body just gave out. And I always like to say, the story with Lyme is very in-depth. I do talk about it more on my podcast, but this was contracted for my journey, whether it was Lyme or whether it was something else, or whether there was a health journey contracted for me to go through while I was having my upgrades. Because what's happening is the density in your body is leaving and you're moving to more light in your body. So you're moving from more carbon to crystalline, which is happening, and we already are crystalline, but we're moving more. So my DNA was getting upgraded, and I was going to have to go through this. But because my immune system was already impaired, this was compounded 10 times. And Spirit has showed me that. They also showed me, why I got them out, and I'll tell you, they told me at one point that it was actually the Octurians came in, they told me, we knew you were going to get these in, and we knew you were going to get them out. And I was like, oh, great, thanks, you didn't even tell me before, right? But, Spirit's like, we knew you were going to do this, and then we knew you were going to get it out. So I got very sick with Lyme from 2017. And then in 2019, I get a hit from Spirit that I need to get my implants out. And at the time, I was like, absolutely not. Oh, hell no. I wasn't ready to accept that reality. I was in complete denial. And I literally told Spirit, go fuck off, pretty much. I was like, I'm not. And you have to come back when it's like last resort, right? I just wasn't ready. And some people could be like, that's so stupid. And sure, maybe it was. I'm not saying it wasn't, right? But there are layers and levels of the awakening. And in 2020, a month after it happened, so April of 2020, they pulled back the veil and I saw all the shit going on with the vaccine, going on with politics. And that was another level of big pharma and everything that I saw. And obviously I started getting it while my health journey, but there's layers and levels to the awakening. So they pulled back the curtain. I saw all that. So they tell me in 2019. So then in 2021, it was either, I always forget, it's either March or April of 2021, I get the download just at my house during the day. And when I get downloads and when I get direct information from Spirit, I know enough that this is truth and this is my path. And I get the download of they need to come out. And I literally sat there and I'm like, oh, fuck. Because I knew what that meant and what came with it. Because it wasn't just like, oh, me making an appointment and popping them out. Sure, that sounds beautiful, or sounds like easier. What I went through, I first had to find the right doctor that felt supportive. And on this journey, I had to accept that I was getting them out. I haven't seen my body in 20 years without big boobs. Mm-hmm. And now and there's people listening here that are rolling their eyes. I know it because I've been through this enough. I see what happens. And they're like, oh, it's so superficial. Yeah, it is. And also it's a reality of, I went through my adolescence with these boobs. I basically forgot they were there and I just thought it was part of my body. You know, it's literally, I just completely forgot all those years. And I didn't even know what I looked like. And so then what had to happen was I spent 3 months over the summer. I got them out in September 2021. I spent 3 months over the summer working on my inner child, going back to the girl that felt she needed them, going back to the girl that was insecure her whole life, going back to the girl that had an eating disorder also at 21, and going back to her and loving her, healing her, letting her be seen, letting her be held, and crying and being scared that, yeah, I had fear of, oh my God, I'm going to look ugly. That's straight up the truth. Mm-hmm. And I had to move through that. And I had to get to a place. I was crying so hard on the table when they were putting me to sleep. So the way my doctor does it, she has you walk in to the operating room because she wants you to feel empowered. And then so you lay down and the nurses were all around and they're starting to put in the IV. And I was crying so hard. One, I was just scared of surgery, right? But I was also like, wait a minute, I'm waking up. And in my head, I was like, I'm waking up and I'm going to be ugly. And I had to get to this place where even if that was the case, and I felt that it didn't matter, that my health was the most important thing because Spirit told me you're going to develop lymphoma if you keep them in. And I knew, and so again, someone might be like, well, why was it a hard choice? It is a hard choice if I developed my identity for 20 years. Imagine 23 years old to 43, going through my awakenings, going through all the things I went through, my adolescence, my 20s, my 30s, all the guys I dated, everything about me, my identity with this. And I, all of a sudden it was like, wow, but this is not even me, right? And that was a false illusion I had on myself. So I had to come back. So that was really hard. And they said to me the last minute, you don't have to do this. You know, we don't have to go through if you're not ready. And I was like, no, I have to. And I'm even going to cry, even get teared up thinking about it. Is like, I just knew, and I had to get through my own shit with that. And I woke up, and I want to share what happened when I woke up real fast, because I think it's really powerful. So I had prepared myself for the 3-4 months that I was doing before that I was going to wake up and I probably was going to be crying because I was going through a grieving process of what my body looked like. And so when I first woke up, I literally heard, I was coming out of, the state, and I heard Spirit say, thank God those are out. And they dropped me into my body in a way that I've never felt before. Like my soul was coming back in after the surgery. Mm-hmm. And they dropped me in and I felt so embodied and connected. And I started to cry. And the nurse came over and she's like, do you want more pain meds? Are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm like, you know what they said to me? And she was like, okay. So I started telling her, I started giving her a psychic reading too, because I'm like, I am so doped up right now. And I'm like, I'm just going to tell you what I see. But that was so powerful. And I actually, from that point, didn't go through a period of like where I thought I was ugly. And it was like, wow, they're actually really cute. Mm-hmm. I'm healthy and I'm really happy. And I was shocked. And I wanted to share all that because I think it's really important for people to know the ins and outs, because this was a huge journey. And now I'm healthiest I've ever been. My before and after, I was so inflamed and swollen. I looked like a different person. And about 4 months after, just doing the same thing, I always ate healthy. Didn't matter. I was always healthy and worked out. And my inflammation completely went. It's like night and day. night and day
Where
difference.
did you notice it the most? Face?
It's everywhere. My face, I look like I was pregnant most of the time. My face.
Okay.
I'll send you pictures afterwards. My face just was huge. I didn't look like myself. It was hard to see. And through that process, I still showed up. You could scroll back at my old lives very far down and you can see my face looks really puffy because I still had to show up because it was more important for me to do the work in the world, even though I didn't like the way I looked when I was looking in this and it was really hard and I had to go through my own moments. But I still showed up because the message is more important than anything else.
And back in the day, I mean, it sounds like you even asked if there were any concerns.
They said no.
And for Accutane, same thing for me. I was told, hey, I have heard that if I change my diet, that could help. No, just take the medicine. And I get it because I'm a nurse. I was trained in the medical world.
Yep.
And when we have a symptom, we take something and that's fine. The message goes away.
Yep.
But sometimes it's a little bit deeper than that. So the identity is a big piece of it. Like it was more than just letting go of boobs. It was more than just saline bags out of the body.
False identity of who I was. Because that was not me.
Yeah.
And listen, with that being said, there's different situations where someone might feel that they need them or they want them or, listen, they are dangerous. They have a black box warning on them, but to each their own. We both agree with that.
Absolutely.
It was a false identity, but that doesn't mean, I know there's people who lose weight and then they have extra skin and it's like, they shouldn't not, if they don't want, if they want to remove the fat to make them feel better, like you need to do what's good for you. Okay. So, I have grays and I dye my hair and that is a false identity, but I'm choosing certain things that I'm doing, right? No ammonia, low tox formula, right? I'm choosing. So it's not like we just have to, we do have to accept ourselves, but why do we even put on clothes, right? Why do we even put on a necklace, right? So there's different layers and levels to this. And we talked about this before. It's not black and white. It's not like, oh, I'm living a healthy lifestyle, so I can't do any single thing, right? Because somebody named, user 2478 is going to scream at me and tell me I'm a fake person, right? So it's very nuanced. You do the best you can, and there's certain things that people want to do, and I'm not here to tell anyone. Even after I got this out, like they're very dangerous, and I would not have them in, but I'm also not going to tell someone to do this. I did a post recently and I'm like, listen, if you want to put the biggest fake tits in, you put the biggest fake tits in. It's your life, not mine. Someone messaged me and they were like, unfollow because you told someone else that they could put the biggest fake tits in. I said, yeah, I told them that because it's not my life and it's not my body.
Yes.
Right? I can only educate, but I don't care what anyone else does with their body. I just want people to be happy.
Well, I think that's also very mature because a lot of people are very attached to people doing it their way.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely opinionated, but I'm not here to tell other people what they have to do. I do a lot of weird things. Yeah. I do a lot of cosmetic procedures. I'm very transparent about that.
Yeah.
Does ruffle some feathers. I could not say anything about it and just mosey on through. Yeah. But I choose to share that because although my face is enhanced, my personality is not, and I'm transparent about all those things. But I know someone who recently got breast implants, and in the past, the former me would try to control that and say, you can't do this, this is wrong. And even in 2020, I was very, very careful. I made my own medical decisions. I lost my career over that. It all worked out. What a blessing. But I was never going to tell anyone that they needed to take the thing or not take it. I just said, this is the right choice for me, and you're also allowed to make the right choice for you. And that's what it's really about, free will, sovereignty,
But most people, I have to say, are, sorry to interrupt you, most people think they're choosing free will, but they're choosing through their programs. And that's the thing. Even going back to the money and going back to the spirituality, it's a program that spiritual people can't have money. It's a program that it's greed. It's a program that you're not allowed to look a certain way. It's a program that you're spiritual, that you have to sit on a mountaintop with a robe around you, right? And listen, I literally go from meditating to talking with my financial advisor to everything in between, right? So all these things are programmed. So going back to what you said, it's beautiful that you're not pushing the energy on them because everyone is here to make their own decision and be on their own journey.
Yes. And I think we've been robbed of our ability to think and decide for ourselves.
Yes.
Through our education system and programming and things like that. But we're allowed to decide, but we often don't trust ourselves enough to decide. And let's say someone does get breast implants, that's their choice to make, and they will deal with the consequences of that, or maybe they won't.
And that's their journey.
Exactly.
That is absolutely their journey. Just like I was not going to not get them in before. It didn't matter what anyone said. I mean, maybe if I knew there was a black box warning, we'd be having different conversations, but I didn't know about that, right? But if someone was just like, no, I don't think you should get it. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Well, I'm getting it, So, we have to be on our own journey. Like, that's just the way it is with everything. And there's different states of consciousness. There's different layers and levels of awakening. And there's people that have yelled at me and said, you triggered me so bad. I hated what you said. And then come back a year later and like, you're changing my life. And now I'm seeing this, right? So you just have to let people be where they're at, because we're all on different journeys.
And not reacting to it. I don't engage. Sometimes I will share something that someone says and share it publicly and just how I respond to it. But I'm not interested in convincing of anyone of anything in the DMs or anything like that. I'm just here to do what works for me and just keep going. Okay. So one thing that I've heard you say, I've heard a lot of people say that March, today is February 15th, that March is going to be pretty wild. I don't know if that's a good thing, a bad thing. I know it could just be how we choose to show up, but what is it looking like in March from your lens?
Okay, so basically from here on out, just put your seatbelt on. I don't know how else to say it. The world is going through another deep, massive awakening. So 2020, crazy, and we're going to be going through lots of other things, right? It's not going to look like 2020, but it's going to be the level of cray that's happening. So, and I'm saying this for this year, next year, it just continuing on. So from astrology terms, there's a huge astrological transit that's happening in March. So Pluto is a outer planet that's very slow moving. So it stays in a sign for a very long time. It moved into Capricorn in, I believe it's 2008. I'm going blank on the dates right now because there's so many dates in my head. I believe it's 2008. Pluto moved into 2008, and that was 2008, 2009 was the financial crisis, right? The loans, mortgage, housing, all that. Capricorn is top-down government, old systems. Pluto comes in, rips things apart, and pulls them out. Pluto is now changing signs and moving into Aquarius in March, so on March 23rd, and it has not been in Aquarius since around 1777-ish. Since the Industrial Revolution. So if you think about what the Industrial Revolution did, it did things on assembly lines. It did, we went from doing it ourselves to doing it mass produced, right? That was a huge jump for humanity, really, from where we were before to this. Like, this is what changed the pulse of humanity. So right now we're going back into Pluto and Aquarius. That is about technology. It's about AI. It's about systems. Now it's about other realms. It's about aliens. It's about internet, right? It's about all these systems. Also, Aquarius is very much power to the people. So we're going to see a lot of different things. It's like F the government, more of that, more power to the people, but it's also there's a shadow side of Aquarian where it's like, let's hook ourselves up to the cloud and just not have to think and just do our thing, right? So I always say it's a lower octave and a higher octave and 50,000 shades of gray in between. Okay. So Pluto is moving there March 23rd. So we're starting to feel the effects already. It doesn't mean on March 23rd, the sky falls, right? It's not about that. It's about deeper that this is setting a change in humanity. And now we're entering this new era. So we're going to see huge things happening. And like I said, it's interesting because Aquarius is about freedom. And when Saturn moved into Aquarius in 2020, that's when we went in lockdown, because Saturn puts on the brakes and Saturn is restriction and Aquarius is freedom. That's one form of it. So Saturn and Aquarius, lockdown, right? So Pluto moving into Aquarius, it's going to be interesting about Pluto pulls out and it basically dissolves anything that's not aligned for the highest good. How it's going to play out, we don't know, but I think it could be something with the internet, could be blackout with that, could be internet change, right? We're going to Web3, something happens with crypto because that's what's the word I'm looking for? It's
centralized?
Yeah, it's decentralized. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. Decentralized, so that's very Aquarian. But there's also more things with freedom, right? And so how it's going to play out, the AI is just going to be to another level, right? So we're not going to be able to get away with it. We're just not. And the stuff that we don't even know with AI and with intelligence of what they're doing, I mean, basically they were already reading our minds and our thought patterns with their phone. You can think something and then all of a sudden you get an ad, right?
Yep.
So here we are. So, and there's going to be a lot of, I got the theme for 2023, one of them is discernment, because, and I'm even seeing that play out. I said that in January, I believe it was. You can see it now because there's pictures of people and they're AI. They're not even real people. So we don't even know what's real anymore because everything is an altered state of reality. Also, and on top of that, Saturn is moving into Pisces on March 7th. And that is a big change as well. Pisces rules the immune system. So that's interesting. I'm curious what we see with that. With Saturn moving in. Pisces is also water and emotion. It's very interesting because Pisces is like the fog and the smog and the illusion and the veil. And we're seeing all these chemical spills, which is literally very Piscean as well. So that's very interesting to me as that's already starting because the energy is already there. It doesn't mean it happens on March 7th. It just gets, stronger as it moves towards, but we're feeling this. So, and then April is the first round of eclipses for this year. And so the energy of eclipses always starts a month before. So March is going to be an absolute game changer. And then April and May, because we have the eclipses and whew, we got a lot going on.
Doesn't necessarily have to mean something bad, just a lot of change.
So when I talk, I don't necessarily even say good or bad. It's just stuff that's happening. And I think, the first step on the spiritual journey is to get away from, there's so many people listening that might be like, oh my God, I'm scared. Well, here's the thing. Your soul signed up for this, so you got this. You're already here. You knew this shit was going to happen. And we got to rock and roll. Let's go. Because there's no one that's here that didn't sign up for this. So it's not about being scared. It's understanding that it's going to change massively. But we are also contributing. We're also writing the story. I can get an idea or download, create an invention. You could do the same thing tomorrow and you shift humanity. So we are part of this Aquarian age, and Aquarian is community and people and coming together and literally shifting the pulse and the thread of humanity together. So there are beautiful things that are going to happen too. And then there's going to be a lot of crazy shit show stuff happening. That's just the nature of the beast, We can't deny it. I can't sit here as an astrologer and pretend like, oh, it's just, we're all ascending to 5D consciousness. We're all moving to crystalline and our DNA is getting activated and nobody's going to yell at you anymore. We're all ascended, beautiful masters. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's not at all.
I had a client today actually talk about how she was feeling very, very fearful about what's going to happen in the world. And I was in that space 2018 to 2020. I'm like, I got to have all the supplies. I got to have everything. And I realized I was buying into the fear. Mm-hmm. And I now have faith. I was very spiritually dead until 28. I'm 35 now. I just didn't believe that there was anything else out there until I prayed and I said, they say, God, the universe, you won't give us more than you can handle. I don't know how much more I can handle. And just so many things changed. But now that the weight of the world is not on my shoulders, I know that there's so much up there guiding me. I don't have to live in fear. I also believe I was put here on purpose. I believe we all were.
Of course.
And that, good always wins in the end. And I don't know when the end will be. I know it's going to get messy. I don't know what that will look like, but I'm choosing to be the most resourceful, the most resilient, and the most loving person that I can be, because no matter what comes our way, we're going to have to be able to pivot.
And listen, none of us get out of this alive anyway, so let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to take it seriously, but not take it so seriously. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
I believe that deeply. I don't stress over having all the answers and making sure I have all the things.
Nobody does. We don't even know what's going on, really.
Exactly. It's just trusting and coming back to that faith and obviously looking at the things that are happening and not bypassing it, but just not living there. I don't want that to be my emotional.
Well, living in the state of fear, because we saw what happens in 2020 when you're in fear, people make decisions that are not of the highest good, that they regret later on. If people would have just waited a little bit longer, many people could have not done certain things that they would have done, right?
Right.
Because people are like, oh, I want to travel, I want to do this, but you couldn't wait a little bit. You had to get on a plane right this moment. It was that necessary. You thought this was going to be the rest of your life, this, and that's an awareness. That's a consciousness that comes in to see the bigger picture, not just jump in. They tell you something, you jump in fear and you react. That's a lower consciousness, and we need to move into open up the blinders, move into awareness, see the spread that's available to you, and then make the decision from there.
Yes. And just zooming out and not, when I'm in that emotionally charged place, I'm not going to make decisions from that place. And it's okay to feel all of that, but that's not where I'm making my decisions from. So something that you do that I really love are your full moon circles.
Yay.
and I've sent them to other clients, and I wasn't sure if that would be their cup of tea or not, and people are loving it. So can you talk more about that? Because it's been something that is accessible at home, and a lot of people don't have access to things like this. And so what a beautiful gift that you have to share with people. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So the full moon virtual circle is something like I said, I've been doing for 8-9 years. It was a download that I got, wasn't ready, came back a year later. And I remember the first time I did it, I was so nervous because I was making it about me, not the work. And I felt my ancestors. I felt my great-grandmother, who is great-great-great-grandmother, was very psychic, used her gifts. She's always around me. I felt her literally like behind my shoulder and like put her hand on me and just be like, yes, you got this. And then it was like amazing from there. So anyways, I do the full moon circles every month on the full moon. You can do them anytime afterwards. Healing is healing. What I always say, we're so programmed to be like, oh, I can only do a full moon circle if it's on the full moon and it's not going to count. No, that's another program. I do it because the emotions heightened and it's a beautiful ritual time for us to connect, but healing is healing. So I always go over, I create the container. I talk about a topic that's related to the moon, related to something that's going on, give a theme, give some wisdom, and then I go into the astrology, and then we do healing work. And so this is the healing work that I did on myself for years and worked with teachers and learned from spirit. It's been a combination of everything of what changed my life to basically clear the personas, clear the limited beliefs, and come back into their heart and their truth. Because at the bulk and the base, I should say, of my work, it is, yes, astrology is a great tool, but my work is unprogramming you to come back in your truth so you know your power, you know your multidimensionality. So these are incredibly powerful, and people are very shocked by them because they're like, I felt like I was getting a Reiki session in person. I haven't felt that, only when I went with my healer with the hands-on, and people are vibrating, their energy moving through their body, their eyes are pulsating. You know, I always say I wouldn't continue something if it wasn't working. And the feedback I get time and time again is mind-blowing, literally, and it's changing people's lives. So that's why I make it affordable. It was always $35 so that everyone can join. I then added them to my membership, which the membership will be opening again in a couple months or so. But now I have them a la carte, so they're about between 45 and 50, and they are a powerful, powerful healing. And so I wanted to make them accessible so everyone can have them. So yeah, I love them. It's what I do. And that's one of the reasons why I can't come to Iceland, is because I would have to move this. And it's really important for me, especially this first round, that I do it on the moon for them, just because I told them I would show up for them. So that's part of why I can't come. Otherwise, I would have loved to join.
Maybe we'll be able to listen there. I don't know what time that will be.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that when you do these full moon circles, a lot of what you're teaching is what helped you. So pain to purpose. Pain to purpose. The victim is going to see something in life, any adversity, as this is happening to me. And I'll speak to my experience in 2018. There was an Ayurvedic chef that was in our home, and she was like, this is a blessing. That was the last thing that I wanted to hear. And I'm like, a blessing, really? I was just so cynical, so angry. I am now so thankful for that experience because I got to see what it feels like to be the patient, to not have answers, to be terrified, not knowing what's going on in our own body. And now I'm able to relate and empathize with people on such a deeper level from that experience. So do you think you would have the quality of the work that you offer today if you did not go through that yourself?
Oh, there's no way, because I wouldn't be able to teach this. Like, you know, listen, I love books and I have a lot of books, but sometimes I'll just read a page, a little chapter here. The work that I do is because of what I went through and what I learned from spirit, and also different teachers along the way, right? But I've learned a lot from teachers that doesn't resonate. I don't embody it, so I can't teach it. But this is the work. And so here's the thing. At the end of the day, you know, I'm not healing anyone. I'm holding the space and container, but what I have learned is it's my field, and my field is powerful. I know this about myself, and some people could be like, this is cocky, this is whatever. You know, it is what it is. You know, I've worked so hard to know myself, so I know myself now. I know what my gifts are, and my field is powerful and helps people shift. And I know that. Yes. And it doesn't matter. You can be on the phone, you could be on the internet. These are not in person. And I do this so people can access all of the world. And because energy knows no time and space. that's why I always say, well, then how can you talk to someone that has passed over? That's mediumship, right? How are we sensing something from the past or the future, right? Past or future in air quotes, because we're just tapping into other realms, and that's what it is. So I do hold a beautiful container so that people can relax their nervous system, because if your nervous system is not relaxed, your body can't heal. But when we're holding your nervous system, right, you can heal. Your body heals yourself, and my field holds the space. And for anyone that's been on, they understand. They hear my voice, they literally drop in so quickly. They're like, nobody else's voice puts me out like that. Nobody else's voice drops me in. And people are like, I haven't cried for years, and I cried. I joke that I'm the period whisperer, because when I used to do one-to-one coaching, I wasn't planning on it, but I was just helping people get their periods, because it's emotion. It's the sacral chakra. If we're not going in there and grieving and clearing and processing, right, we're not going to tap in. That's your feminine. So, yeah, I help people get their periods all the time. The period whisperer.
It's beautiful. And I have some clients that wouldn't feel comfortable going somewhere, especially because a lot of emotion comes up. I've cried. Otto has cried. I know many people who have cried, and that is not a weakness. It's beautiful. But for some people, they feel more comfortable doing it at home. So I love that. No one else is on the screen.
Yep,
it's just
nobody
your
else
voice. You're not interacting. You just put on headphones or just let it play. And
they are
powerful. So powerful. And I remember one that really stood out that was about inner child healing. And that is something that I thought was stupid. I got really angry when it was brought up to me. And I worked with a medical intuitive. Like, what inner child? I was so angry at the thought.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready. Just kind of like you had the idea for the moon circles, but you weren't ready. That's how I felt about the inner child healing. I have a picture of little me on my phone. I don't know if you can see it. I have it on my refrigerator, and I just think, what does that little girl need to hear?
Yes.
And so many of the choices that I made to change my appearance, to sleep with people, to do things, I was trying to get love externally.
Absolutely.
And we're going to continue doing that until we know how to give it to ourselves.
Yep.
And that is one thing that I've really taken from these full moon circles. And it's teaching me how to talk to that little me that's in there. And it's the most powerful work. So I'm just so grateful for all that you're doing. And for some people, it might seem hokey pokey, but it is so powerful. And I've learned to love myself. And really, that's the most important thing. It's okay if Bill from Wisconsin doesn't love me or like me. It's okay. But how do I feel about myself? But if we are not connected with ourselves, we're going to find that outside of us. And I think that's a trap. So the work that you're doing is really helping people connect with themselves, which is not selfish. When we take better care of ourselves, we're going to have so much more to give others. That's why I don't think money is bad. When we have money, we can take care of ourselves and do more for others. And you're just such a great leader in that. So I so appreciate you sharing. And if anyone is listening, highly recommend the full moon circles.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at I am Danielle Paige, Paige. Please know that there are many fake accounts of me, and I'm never going to message you. So when people follow me, they get these fake accounts. So it's not me. I'm not going to ask you to do a reading. And or you can go to my website at daniellepage.com. I have astrology courses. I have courses on the soul. I have my membership. I have tons of beautiful things going on.
Great. And we'll include that in the show notes as well. So thank you again, Danielle. I so appreciate having you on, and I look forward to seeing what else you are able to bring into your life this year. I feel like it's going to be a great one. I don't know what's coming this year, but I feel like big things are coming for both of us.
Huge things are coming this year. And thank you so much for having me on. I love speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review, ideally a 5-star review if you loved it. All of this is free of charge and really helps me to be able to run the podcast. If you take a screenshot and tag me, I'll repost you and shout you out on Instagram. So tag Ashley Taylor Wellness and High Maintenance Hippie Podcast. If you have any feedback or guests that you'd like to have, I would love to hear from you so that I'm not just talking at you. I really want to deliver things that are valuable. So send me an email with any feedback, suggestions, or ideas for guests at ashley@ashleytaylorwellness.com. And I will leave you with a disclaimer. Please know that this is not medical advice or replacement for seeking medical care. Everything discussed on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with your medical provider before making any changes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.